I'd like to call the Whatcom Public Utility District meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's take a look at the agenda. Is there any modifications or changes to the agenda? Don, it's one of your last meetings. Are you sure you don't want to do an executive session?
No.
Okay, don't say I didn't ask.
I move to approve the agenda.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda, which is the minutes of the regular meeting of October 14th and the claims for today, October 28th. Are there any modifications or changes to the minutes for the claims? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to public comment. Are there any public comments in the room?
Yeah,
Great.
Todd Livingston, private citizen. I realize that you may not have gone through this completely, but I wanted to give some initial first blush ideas. One thing I noticed, I appreciate that Chris has at least an electronic signature on the front, but on page 16, in the back where the PUD commissioners are, one, it doesn't say who you are. And two, I'd like to see your signatures on it. I think that's important. When I made I facilitated a plaque at the credit union I'm on the board of, we made sure that all of the board of directors signed. Actually, we digitized their signature and it's engraved on the plaque itself and commemorating our 80 years at the credit union. And I think that's important. It says something. Plus, it's an opportunity to identify yourselves. That's valuable. And then a couple of weeks ago at the county council meeting in the afternoon, they got a report from one of the planning commissioners on what was going on at the planning commission and related to the comp plan. And what jumped out to me was what was attributed to the PUD is that the focus was fusion. So anyhow, it seemed that it was what one person took away from whatever they got was fusion, not geothermal, which is I think,
Strange.
a lot closer. And so anyhow, just wanted to let you know what's being talked about. So,
The clause had geothermal and fusion.
Yeah.
And geothermal was first. And all we were trying to do was make awareness in the community that these are potential resources that, carbon free, dispatchable, all that good stuff, and not here today.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to that and then there was some just, chuckles about fusion and like, what is this, Star Trek? And everyone was like, well, they wanted to get the lowdown of what the idea behind that was. So they kind of called out, was anyone from the PUD there? So I dialed in and just kind of gave them the basic rundown of what the thinking was there, as well as, on our exploration for geothermal. So, I think there was other things,
it must have been a different meeting.
Are you talking about, wait,
It's
so
like
this was,
the afternoon session presented by one person from the planning commission that gave a report, not.
oh, I see, okay, you're talking about, so the summary of, you're talking about in the county council meeting?
It was an afternoon session.
Afternoon session?
Yeah, it wasn't anything, I don't know what you're referring to. I just wanted to let you know that what one person's takeaway was the concentration on fusion. So,
okay, I'll go.
Yeah,
We'll see what that was. I mean, that might have been,
happy to have a conversation on
yeah,
it.
that was, it's too bad that was.
I have to know that before we move on. Did somebody really say, what is this, Star Trek?
In the planning commission meeting?
Yeah.
That was or
And if you
There-
recall, we had talked about
Yeah.
that, but Chris has not been able to identify dilithium crystals, so
I
for
know.
that reason, we haven't been able
I
to.
mean,
So
we
we
wish
got-
it
we
were
got
Star Trek,
Kurt.
right?
I'll do Spock, you know,
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
granted, I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to exact, I don't want to quote verbatim, you know, but that was they were wondering what, they wanted to understand what the, you know, why that was specifically in there. And if we were serious about it, so that was where I think then maybe they were summarizing that meeting in the report out.
Yes.
Where that had been talked about. Yeah, granted, that was all to the effect of just having that word included there in the policy, as.
It
But
says potential for
it
Halloween
was, I don't,
for
yeah, I mean,
Spock.
thanks for flagging
For
that. Scott.
Deanna, you could be Deanna.
I mean, granted, I mean, recognizing, yeah, the general public really has no idea, where things are at and, you know, the advances and development happening in Washington around fusion energy, so.
So just as a reminder, a couple of years ago, I put together a presentation on fusion energy. I'd be happy to update that because things have changed and present that anywhere that it would be appropriate.
Okay,
And I've done that.
so, one thing that came up in the comment that actionable, I just might as well address it now, and that is the signatures. Are we all okay with making sure we all have live signatures? I mean, you know, our
Is that
access.
doable?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Okay, just, you'll let us know.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. There is, you know, space on the page there for names and signatures. It would look good, I think, so thank you, Todd.
And, I haven't had a chance to review this visual, you know, presentation yet, so when do you want the input back from them?
Well, I think we're gonna talk about it.
Wait, is it?
Yeah, it's part of the strategic plan. update.
Okay, so let's move on, to the general manager's report.
Just a couple of.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, Chris, I didn't check if there's any, online attendees that wanted to make a comment. Looks like, no. Okay, sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Just a couple of quick things. There's a mini energy symposium on November 12th, and it's being held down, I think it's in SeaTac. Wapuda is the host. And at the GM meeting last week, they were advertising, you know, trying to get people to go. I think it's targeting elected officials more than anything else. And anyway, Liz and Stephanie were looking for and Travis were looking for additional people to go. They weren't sure that people knew about this, and I want to make sure that you guys knew about it.
We know about it, Nicholas talked about, I knew about it, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, and I thought it was in Olympia, but maybe.
It could be in Olympia. I'm not real clear on it. I had not planned on going.
It's adjacent to the Wapuda meetings,
Okay.
which is start 12th afternoon.
So I just
13th
want to
and 14th.
encourage the three of you, if you're at all interested, you can do it on your calendar and all that. That'd probably be a good one to go to. I'll ask Andrew to take a look at his calendar as well. It doesn't fit on mine, unfortunately, but it'll be I think it'll be a decent meeting. The folks that have been invited, there are a lot of congressmen and, you know, I believe that senators have been invited. Now, traditionally, these folks may send a staffer and just nobody. Attendance has been real spotty. We'll just have to see what happens, but the point was to try and get people up to speed on what's going on with the West Tech model, with reliability, with the California energy markets, with SPP markets, plus all of those issues right now are coming to a head. So that this was geared towards that.
I'm planning to attend.
So the second and my last issue is, went to PPC meeting, I guess it was last week, or the week before, and and I think I gave you guys a heads up on the residential exchange issue, but let me describe that for a moment. When Bonneville was created, there was a recognition that since they serve public power, the taxpayers who helped fund this, the ones that are served by an investor-owned utility, would not financially benefit from something that sells only to consumer-owned utilities, which is Bonneville. Even though taxpayer money in general created Bonneville and paid for the initial dams and operations of the Army Corps and everything else. So what happened back then was an agreement that a certain amount of the money that came into Bonneville would be siphoned off and sent over to the investor-owned utilities, and it's called the residential exchange. John, probably more familiar with the history of all this than I am, so, forgive me if I'm misstating anything, but the investor owns right now have approached, Secretary Wright in Washington DC, and we didn't know exactly what their ask was gonna be, but it was around the residential exchange. So we were all pretty worried about that. Now that their ask is out in the open, I'm even more worried. What they want is both an increase in the residential exchange, and just as a reminder, 10% of everything we pay to Bonneville goes to the IOUs directly. It's just a pass through. So when you look at the residential exchange and the fish programs, it's more than half of our bills. So just kind of order of magnitude on those things. What they want is certainty. So regardless of whether it's a good water year or bad water year, they want the residential exchange amount to remain the same. Now, clearly in a bad water year, that would mean that we would have to make up all of the difference. And in a good water year, we wouldn't get necessarily the benefit, although you do get some relief on your tier 2 power and market exchange rates and everything else. It's not the same as getting. So there's probably going to be, in fact, there's been a letter already from Scott Sims, PPC, that everybody signed off on protesting that, and the way Scott words it is really good. And I will forward that letter to you. I got it, I think, yesterday, so you'll have it. But it's a big issue. I wanted you guys to be aware of it. Commissioner?
Well,
And I'm done.
I've got a comment, but.
Go ahead.
So on the subject of residential exchange, I mean, I don't remember if it's you or someone else who mentioned this point that when you look at what they're asking for in terms of the impact of their bills, the PSC bills that we receive, it's almost unnoticeable. And so there's a lot more that the investor-owned utilities and the public utilities have to work on. And my advice to the investor-owned utilities is to let's work on those things. A kickback of a few dollars is not worth a protracted battle, whereas there's a lot of things where we can collaborate with the investor-owned utilities that will provide them a lot more financial security, as well as for the public utility. So there's so much shared interest right now with the transmission on the plate and generation on the, as being these really important issues. I think it's, I hope that we can convince the industrial utilities to not fight too much over.
Well, I think that's a noble sentiment. And when you look at the actions of the investor-owned utilities, they went ahead and cooked all of this up and sprung it without talking to any of us. So they're apparently not interested in that kind of.
And they're talking directly to our legislators, just to.
Yes, and the current administration is probably more sympathetic to a private company than a public company.
Yeah.
So, just be forewarned. One of the other items that they are asking for is the environmental credits associated with that amount of the power. So they want to siphon off about 10% of the RECs that are available for CETA compliance on their part. I understand why they want that. I'm just not favor of it.
This will be a topic at the annual PPC meeting.
No doubt.
Which is another meeting that it's worth considering. I don't know if I know you're going, Chris, right? You're going to attend. It's attendance only. I have another engagement in Philadelphia, which will keep me busy through Thursday, but if it might be any of the other commissioners want to, it's in Portland.
in person only in Portland
person.
on November 6th.
Yeah.
Well, I had it on my calendar, wasn't 100% sure if.
You got to RSVP. They have Eventbrite tickets for it.
I can't remember if I did or not.
You have the get response in your email.
Yeah.
I can forward it to you.
Do you think it'd be worth it
I mean, part of the reason that it's so valuable for me, number one, it's a GM-led organization, so I get to see all the customer-owned utility GMs, the co-ops, the people throughout the Northwest. It's different than WPUDA. all of the members of the board of directors are GMs. None of them are elected officials. And, so for me, the value of being there in person is I get to meet with a lot of my counterparts. And then the folks that aren't GMs that are there are typically power supply directors in the various utilities. So it's a very technocratic, kind of narrow focus on the thing. Other than that, I'll leave that up to you. There's usually a half a dozen out of the 100 or so people who show up. There's usually about a half a dozen elected officials. It's not, it really is a very technical.
Yeah.
Kind of narrow. So if you would benefit from that, head on down. If you would prefer just get a report from me, that's fine too,
Okay.
because I will be
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's what I was weighing is, like how much, just the usefulness of going and better understanding from being in the room.
It works out really,
recognize it.
it works out really good as far as timing, because that meeting's on the 6th. Then on the 10th, we have a commission meeting,
Mm.
and we can get a debrief from Chris, and then we can head to Waputa for Energy Committee. It could be a really potent couple weeks.
It's kind of it's a little bit odd that we have this much business, this much traffic right at the end of the year. This is
Mid-November, yeah.
usually, from about Halloween until a little after New Year's is usually pretty
Yeah.
quiet.
Mhm.
This is quite the exception. Thank you,
Our
IOUs.
budgets and our strategic,
I-
plan, like throwing stuff at us.
And I was, I heard a lot of some discussions last week, with folks from Oputa saying, a lot of what's gonna be discussed at PPC, they're gonna be presenting on it.
In the morning
in
conference.
at Waputa, so they're,
Well, yeah, Travis and Nicholas are always at the PPC meeting, both. of
Yeah.
them. So, and sometimes
Yeah.
Liz is there, but usually not. That's it. for
I
me,
guess I'm
unless you
trying
have
to
questions.
better understand what response or is this just sort of an FYI thing?
This is.
Yes.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah, the response from PPC already went out, and
Yeah.
I'll get you a copy of Scott's letter.
okay.
Okay, should we move on to the operations report?
You bet.
Okay, so thanks, Kurt.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. How you doing?
Morning.
So just a couple quick things. We're looking to start this week our basin washdowns, probably the last ones of the year. Plant 2 will be getting washed down starting today, maybe tomorrow. So we empty the settling basins and clean all the sludge out of the floor and push it out to the waste basins. And then also, I just wanted to mention that the river, it's a pretty clean river right now, but it's we're in a rising tide situation right now. We're at about 2,000 cubic foot per second, coming up pretty good, and it looks like a roller coaster uphill for the next week or two. So I think we're looking good for getting our flows in the river back up. So I just wanted to bring that up.
So Kurt, do you think we passed through the low flow period for the year, kind of made it safe?
Oh yeah, I think so. Let's see the temperature also. The temperature is down around 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty chilly.
Excellent.
So yeah, I think we're past that. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on from the operation report to the old business.
Andrew, would you like to talk to us about broadband a little bit?
Sure, good morning. Brief update on broadband activities, but we'll start on Point Roberts. We submitted our scope of work change to the state broadband office. So should hear back soon, although I don't know the timeline or when they plan to get back to us. But you might recall that some of the limitations and restrictions that the tribe and DAP put on the project, we went ahead and removed all underground disturbing activities from the project, which in itself resulted in the removal of about 300 address points. So we wrapped that up into a new scope of work, change that reduction of the overall number of homes to be served in the project. So that's what we're waiting on from the state broadband office. The next step from there is to get our finalized design, because we had to redo the design completely It's just how the network works when you're in the design, when you remove locations. And so we're just at the tail end of that, with our contract engineering firm. And, that should be wrapped up by the end of this week, if not next week at the latest. And then from there, we'll submit that to DAP and the tribe for approval. And once we have that approval from DAP and the tribe, assuming there's no other concerns with our design, that will give us the go ahead to pursue the next steps of the project. So we're just rolling along here. We did hear, so moving on from there, we did hear from the Point Roberts Taxpayers Association. They're doing a survey on broadband, essentially broadband availability out on the point. They're just identifying, providers and who's doing what, and so that it's really, they want to just get it really super clear, the roles and who's doing what out there on the point. So we participated, we responded to their survey. No, we're not an internet service provider, and talked about the model and so on and so forth. So just want to let you know if you hear of any kind of, outreach, we've participated.
And I was lucky enough to sit in on a conference call between Andrew and Whitby-Tell and others. And one of the interesting things is Whitby-Tell is just chomping at the bit. They want to pre-order material and get stuff staged, and and we've told them, hold off, because we got to get this thing through DAP before you spend a bunch of money
Right.
and get the green light. So Andrew, thank you for continuing to hold those meetings every other week and continue to invite me. I'm sorry I'm not in on every one, but
That's okay.
when I drop in, it's always really educational.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Of course. That's the update.
In my check-in with you, Chris, we talked about that we're about 30 days out now from having some solidity to the awards for the BEAD.
That's what we heard, that Wiswell is ready to submit back to NTIA, or they already did, and we're waiting for them to respond on the BEAD.
Yeah, so the draft final proposal has been submitted to NTIA. The state broadband director, Joseph Williams, though, at the telecom workshop, which I believe Commissioner Desmani was there as well, he does not he does not think the timeline, which was originally set early part of December, that we would hear back from NTIA. He thinks that's completely changed, going to be pushed out to the beginning of January, and that's because some of the staffers at the federal level that review state's final proposals are not working because of the government shutdown.
We can review them for them.
Yeah,
If you
Brian,
make that
I was
offer,
very unhappy with. the
We should
situation.
offer
Yeah,
we'd be happy to.
stamp of approval.
that. We think it's a good plan. Some problem.
That's it. No.
Adjudication.
Yeah, I have two things for you. One is, you may have read the paper. Ecology has started a curtailment process on the water rights in the Yakima Basin. Here's an article from the Seattle Times last week about that. I had forwarded this to you, so I hope you were able to open it and look at it. I have a couple extra copies here. This was to do the low water supply, and it's the nature, we are aware I was aware this was coming forward. Draft orders have been circulated in advance. I had rumors of this a few weeks back, months or so ago, or more. I would tell you that the ecology's comments about the Nooksack adjudication, that will not lead to curtailment or false, in my view. It's a lawyer's parsing of the process, and the adjudication generally itself will not result in a direct order that says you must curtail your water right. It is supposed to be just a schedule of the valid legal water rights and who has priority. In the Yakima Basin, one of the later orders by the adjudication court gave ecology the authority to curtail use that was impairing a senior right. So the adjudication itself didn't result in a direct order telling someone not to use water in the Yakima adjudication, but it did give ecology authority to issue curtailment orders. Ecology has that authority independently under the water code. So what has happened now is ecology has ordered a curtailment of water use due to low water supply. And again, that authority was rested within the some of the final adjudication orders by the court and independently exist in state water code. So, some point in time, when the adjudication is concluded, don't be surprised if this comes to our committee. Second thing, it's my ran on ecology day. The case steering committee has been meeting. We met again this week. We were asked by the court to address a couple of things, and we'll pull our agenda out so I can speak to it directly. We were asked to look at concepts of early settlement, possible lead counsel designation for issues of broad interest, and then substitution of parties, if property owner sold their home, John Sitkin was named as a defendant, potential defendant, claimant. I filed a claim and then I sold my home. How do you substitute the new party who bought the home into the case? It has to be some efficient process for that. Aquabella case in Yakima dealt with that. And then questions about whether lifting the stay on motions. This last week, we had a case meeting, and after the agenda was published, the ecology's attorney who chairs the committee invited Robin McPherson to attend the meeting, reportedly to talk about the claim numbering at ecology and then their outreach process. She consumed the first 15 minutes of the meeting, and it was really about how the efforts they've undertaken to serve parties in litigation. This really relates to default issues about if someone was properly served and whether ecology made the reasonable efforts to locate someone, serve them, or whether service by publication is sufficient. And the net outcome of this, one of the net outcomes of this is that we will end up having two different deadlines for filing claims, most likely out of this. One is the statutory deadline of May 1st. And then because ecology is going to cannot find or locate a number of parties, or they haven't responded or didn't sign or accept service, whatever, they will have to do service by publication. And it appears the timing, by the time they get that approved by the court, get the list, get everything done for publishing and getting that, meeting all the statutory timelines, the timeline for a response will be sometime after the May 1st deadline. Your timing to respond to a lawsuit by publication has certain dates after publication, and that'll be after the May 1st deadline. It appears at this point in time. So there'll be two deadlines. So the court asked us to look at default procedures. I'm making the observation that at some point the committee's being asked to comment on the sufficiency of ecology's processes for service, which I opine is not our role as a committee. We're the court's case committee, not ecology's committee too. And I don't want ecology or someone saying, well, I ran this by the committee and they said this was sufficient, or they recommended this because of, I think we should be the committee should not be commenting on what ecology did. The process that ecology has to go through for filing a motion for default, and making that efficient, maybe you want to assure notice and that kind of thing. It becomes rather nuanced in that, ecology started saying that they would like to use the docket sheet we've talked about before for notice. And I said, well, how do you have notice when a party is not a party? Remember, the court has said, we don't feel if you haven't filed a claim, you're not a party to the action, even though you're listed in as a potential defendant. So I said, how does a potential defendant who's not a party get notice through a docket sheet? That seems inconsistent to me. So we're getting into the nuance. We're gonna start having some disagreements. We are. And
You mean between members of the committee?
Yeah. And I think that we will be. And I'm starting to take a stronger voice about not being ecology's committee and blessing what ecology does, that we need to step aside on ecology. You guys make your own legal decisions and listen to your own attorney for advice and not go to the committee. We can help the court with procedures. That's what we should do, but not whether ecology's done the right thing or not.
Hey, John, can I ask you kind of an off the wall question?
Sure.
I didn't think about it until just now. Is there an obligation for ecology to serve the tribes for their claims?
I think they did.
Okay,
I assume they did.
I'm
I
not sure.
have to
that's-
go back and look and see if they should have been named as a party. And I have to go back and look for 30. They, in their presentation, they made an observation. They think that there will actually end up being 14 to 17, I don't know the right number, but they were making an estimate plus or minus 15,000 actual claimants by the time the people that have given up their water, didn't file a false water claim, or didn't have a valid claim when they filed it under the Claim Registry Act, folks that gave up their water right, people who had double names. I mean, we inquired of ecology, why was Chris named as the holder of one of the PUD's water rights? And they said, well, that's because he was the contact person named in a water system plan. I'm like, well, that makes no sense, but that was their rationale.
Well, and it also turned out we had sometime historically a well on the parcel that we bought.
Yeah.
So it went with the, when the berry farmer sold that whole big parcel to the developer to put all these homes on it, it ended up being our parcel. They got, and I'm not doing anything with that because, I'm served by the city of Linden.
Yeah.
And
So that was the whole, individually, but it's the PUD, so we've got that in our list of issues to address. We've sent a letter to ecology, but, it's. I get that. Starting an adjudication and serving everybody with all the claims and permits and holders and well users and exempt well users is difficult. I get it. No one said it's easy. That's why I think they were supportive of the extension of filing the claim deadline, because they had so much work to do. Back when we did that legislation 2 or 3 years ago. But you started the adjudication. These are things you have to do and comply with. In any kind of lawsuit. Early settlement, we didn't get that far. The council designation, I've expressed that I don't want, I think I've told you, maybe I have, but I've expressed to the committee, I don't want the court picking who's gonna represent my client. If we wanna have one attorney represent a number of parties on an issue that are aligned, we should be able to pick that person, and it's okay to have a process to require a legal counsel designation. But the court shouldn't just pick whomever, in our view. And the substitution of parties issue will probably just follow something that was done in Aquaville, a very simple form of sign and file.
So on all of that, so the first thing is you raised this point about, the committee not being ecology's committee. I think, I feel strongly that it's in support of that statement. There's. I mean, my input, I don't know how the commissioners feel like, because I don't want you. Speaking on behalf of. PUD to help ecology do. Their job,
Believe me, I have not.
okay. Not in the faintest intention, okay, good, and so on the first point that you raised, about raise this article. In a friendly way. It would be beneficial. For us to point some things out to ecology that they're doing that are undermining the community's interests. And this is one of them. And I don't know how that's done in a, if we should consider a letter. Friendly suggestions from the PUD. Or not. But certainly as the local government most involved in this, in terms of hours invested. Perhaps we can be a help. We have service in providing some useful.
I
pointers.
disagree with you though, like, I
Yeah.
don't think that this shows that they're undermining our interest. I think that
they're just doing what the court said.
they're just doing what the court said, like, this is a legality. The adjudication is the mechanism.
I'm sorry, I
by
was
which
referring
we-
to what the article is, which basically that there are curtailments that are going to happen, and I'm saying that they're not part of curtailments is a misrepresentation of the.
I think,
That's what we should.
My reaction to that is I would not be on the front end at this point in time. I think there's gonna be a lot of other parties that are gonna make that case to the ecology. You've already seen her walking farm and friends. It was
Ben,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ben's
Ellen Boss.
making his point, it's
Yeah.
in the public. You know, they have a huge PR machine at Ecology. That they are rolling out and they take great pride in. I don't think that we will. Have much influence in putting up guardrails and what they say or how they say it. I think that Seattle Times running an article like this. And then getting legs in the community speaks volumes, and we don't have to be on the front end of writing letters.
Okay.
This is, I'm, you know, everyone. And the committee, for instance, is being professional, we have the court hearings, everyone's being professional, but let's not kid ourselves. There will be knife fights. Over 20, 30 years in this adjudication.
I feel like I have something to say, but nobody
Yeah.
wants to.
Sorry.
No,
let me talk.
Yeah,
So.
I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
you understood what I was saying.
I understand what you're saying, but here's what I'm saying. There is miscommunication with the community that adjudication could maybe possibly not happen, especially when Ben put stuff forward. We shouldn't be focusing on arguing with ecology. We should be focusing on finding solutions to water supply. That is the problem. So now we know, now everybody knows that adjudication will allow curtailment. So how do you make sure that everybody in this water basin has enough water? That should be our focus.
Mm.
And so we should be reaching out to the Ag Water Board, we should be reaching out to tribes, we should be sort of building a community of people that are saving water. That are, we know now curtailment will happen. We also, I mean, the writing's on the wall, people are gonna be metered. I mean, none of this stuff should be a surprise to anybody that's been watching what adjudication actually is. So our job is to make sure that we have enough water to serve all of the people and all of the fish in Whatcom County. And how are we going to do that? We need solutions.
So I mean, I completely agree with the statement that that's our driving force is to come up with solutions for water supply. But of course, in the decades-long process, there's many little
But we have,
chapters.
Ben Ellenboss is, what he's putting forward is not that adjudication should stop. What he's putting forward is that we need to start working on solutions. So we know that the Ag Water Board, there's people on county council that we are interested, like now is the time to start building a coalition of people that are working on solutions. People didn't want to come to the table before to work on solutions because they didn't have to. Now we know that we have to. Curtailment is in our future. And so we gotta strike.
Right, I think what I'm concerned about, there's a certain number of people in the community who may not have read this. Who instead of hearing what ecology said about curtailment is not. It's really making sure this does get out, this message does
Sure.
get out. Is what I'm referring to. And I'm concerned that when ecology is saying that. You know. It may not, don't worry.
Yeah, and they can lean into that, cause it's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the legality of it. They can easily say, like.
So
you
that's
said,
really what
it's
I'm
a
referring to here.
parsing.
Is there something we can do to help, make sure that but your point is that this is already getting out? It's,
I think it's already getting out. I think you'll have legs from other groups. I like Jamie's point that this really underscores what the PUD has been talking about for a few years about getting on the solutions.
yeah, and
You know,
it'd be a
that comes
mistake.
back to the if not now, when?
And if this is widely being disseminated, I guess I really should try to get to the Farm Bureau event tonight.
Mhm.
Because I'll be curious to see how widely this is being discussed in North County. But if it is, then it is truly an asset for us.
Get on
because-
Whatcom Family Farmers, they're talking about it.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
get that information. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I understood Jamie's point, and I think that if we were engaging the discussion about the ecology's PR, we're missing the point. Where it really is, this is a low water issue, curtailments in the future, what are we gonna do about solutions? And let's get on with it. That's really the focal point, not ecology's.
So you're saying there's not a lot of other people, there's not a lot of people out there, in your opinion, who are going to hear what college says, ignore this. the bias will be people will be looking out for most people look out for their personal interests, and they're gonna be skeptical of those statements from ecology. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But definitely share this with your friends. Yeah. Big deal.
And I agree with the point that this helps create the impetus for what we're gonna do.
So, I mean, when you'll see this in a little bit, when you look at our strategic plan, we're focused on solutions. And I think that's right.
Right.
That's the right direction. I will just observe as a kind of practitioner here, whatever you say to ecology just doesn't matter. I mean, look at what they've done around the municipal water law for the last
You're right.
5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even care about the law. They're just gonna do whatever they wanna do for whatever purpose, and when communicating with them on stuff like this, where you're trying to influence their actions is futile. Just not gonna have any effect. Just, that's my observation,
Mhm.
that nothing we have done with them has had any effect.
That's
This
true.
was a great article, though.
That's true. Okay. Moving on, is there anything else on adjudication? All right, let's move on to geothermal.
So on geothermal, has Mike sent out the invitations to everyone?
No.
Okay. We're trying to get a joint meeting between the Nooksack Tribal Council and the PUD Commission. And we've got a letter agreement memorandum of understanding between tribe and us, and it's been through CSD. Peter's had comments, and frankly, it's great. It's just an expression of partnership and goodwill between us. Both parties mean it. And it'll help us move this thing forward. We'd like to set up a joint signing ceremony. Yep. So that's really what the meeting's about. So when you get the invitation from Mike, please look in your spam folders. I will, as soon as I get mine, I'll ping you guys and make sure. But that's heads up. That's what we're trying to do there.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we did get a proposal back from the lobbyist that we were looking for, and it took a while to get it back. We just got it back late last week.
Yes.
Yeah, and anyway, but it's a good proposal. And then so and it's within my delegation of authority. It's actually less for the entire package than what we paid for the Olympia lobbyist, which frankly was also a good deal. So this is even better, and you're getting a Washington DC lobbyist. At the same time, it looks like Wakuda is really going to help us on the lobbying front, and I've talked to Liz about that, and so she's trying to set up a meeting with Secretary Wright and some other stuff associated with the February meetings. So more to follow on that. Other than that, we haven't had any update from Bureau of Land Management and from the Forest Service, so we don't know where we are on that. Andrew's been pinging them at least once a month, and we're still dead in the water on that as far as I know. And I expect at some point we'll just get notice that, hey, it's now available for auction, put in your bids. So that's another reason we want to get the memorandum of understanding with the tribes going, because that'll really help us work together and figure out what the bids ought to be.
Yeah.
I mean, best foot forward kind of stuff. Same thing on chicken.
That's it.
And then there's been a lot of play in the press recently. I don't know if you've seen it, but Furville and Quays, especially two of the geothermal firms, really have gotten a lot of press. Wall Street Journal had a full page article on geothermal energy this week. Very, very good article. Kind of technically well below what you guys have already been briefed on. But that being said, it's neat to get that kind of national press on geothermal energy. The gist of the message of the Wall Street Journal article was that this is one area where, regardless of your political affiliation, you can say yes. And that's an astute observation by them, and I think it's also quite true. So hopefully we've got some wind in our sails on this one, and we can keep moving. Long-term effort, though.
Yeah.
Anything else on geothermal? Okay, let's move on to strategic plan.
This one, I'll be quick, it'll be to Lisa, and Lisa, you want to join us at the table, or back there's fine too, I guess.
So you have your, copy in front of you, this is this is the draft, right, but, nearly final draft, I would like to add. So I think at this point, it should have all the content, all the things that we talked about, this is just put into formatting, and it's actually the second version, I got a version from them last week, there were some things that and they've already made those changes for us, so. This is a nearly complete version, and if there's any, small thing, we'll add the signatures like we talked about. But I need to be getting back to them this week with any additional comments or feedback. Because any tweaks that we make at this point are gonna be small. Because we should have the content that we want it.
So I have just a comment that's kind of like, with putting our names on photos. We have some really cool photos in here. Is there any way we can get descriptions about them? Like this
Caption, yeah.
one right here, you know, like what year, like who's doing, like what, you know, who's doing that? Just, the door.
Yeah,
wants
that's
to know.
if we have that.
Yeah, okay.
information. If we do, I can certainly see if we can add that in.
My other comment is it looks beautiful. I love having the goals with the strategies underneath it and easy. It's very user friendly now.
Yeah, I'm really happy with, the product we've gotten from Foster and Money.
Yeah,
Really
it's great. It looks great. Obviously, we will probably all need time to look through it before. we
Yes,
provide.
and I haven't,
Yeah.
that's the first I've seen this.
Yeah, it came in after 12 p.m. last week. I think they were working hard to get that.
And, so far, just like, and just don't hold me to this because this is, for 2 minutes of looking at it. But the look of it is really good. The only page that I don't like is the front page. It's kind of boring. You know,
Yeah,
like,
you know,
so either it should be visually stimulating or it should be, it should maybe synopsize what's inside it. Have some kind of a something what you see on the front should speak to what's inside the document. I just an input. I don't want to.
it
relate
is
to
a
that.
second version, I will tell you that, because I really didn't like the first of it.
Yeah, because it's
So
beautiful
this-
on the inside,
Yeah,
but the front page is a little bit, and I love the captions point. I love the quotes point. I mean, the signatures, live signatures point. But something on the front page, I'm not, none of us may have that beautiful front page in our mind, and we may not get to it, but.
I don't necessarily disagree. The first one, I think I felt kind of bad, but the phrase I used when I responded to them was it's very underwhelming.
Mhm.
And so this is actually, quite better. Than the first one. So, but I will, I'll take a little time to see if I have any other additional suggestions. I don't know if it's the photos, I'm not sure, but I don't disagree. But I don't know I don't know how much change we'll have and how much time we'll have.
I need to,
Let's see what we can.
I need to share the conversation we had last night. So she asked me what I thought of the original version of it, and I kind of did the, you know, if you want to change it, you want to change it. And she looked at me like, wait a minute, you're the boss, you should know what to do. And I said, no. This is the conversation I have with my wife Jody all the time, where she says, so do you think that matches? I am not the right person to ask on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's definitely fine, but that's all it is right now, the front page. Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
I'm open to. I mean, leaving it would be fine, but not ideal.
Yeah, you know, we're just talking about wrapping paper here, but I can
Yeah.
kind of believe it could be, you know, it could be, yeah.
It could speak
yeah,
to
it
what's
it could be
inside.
better, but, you know, it's not the most important thing, but yeah, but.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna be lackluster, at least it should be informative. If it's visually uninspiring, it should
Yeah.
at least point to what's inside, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so we got water treatment plant rendering, you know, Baker. And, what else would we put on it? That would be the-
You could, instead of photos, put up sort of like symbols for transmission, water and telecommunications.
Mhm. Yeah, that was.
I think I
feedback
understand
inside.
the
Yeah.
feedback, so we'll work on it a little bit. I didn't create it. but-
Yeah, I know you didn't.
I just
Can
want
you-
to point out that Joseph has his hand up right now.
Please, Joseph.
So the only thing I think the attention draw on that front page, what's key is that there's a gap of space with nothing in it. And that's, I think, where the underwhelm comes in to a degree, because you've got the photos and whatever, and then there's this gap of open space. What if we were to put our mission statement in that space on its side?
I'll look at redesigning it.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool. Great. And,
Yeah,
and I know a lot of work has gone into this on our part as well as, our vendor, Mall Foster Hornby. I just, appreciating all the hard work and, that comment is in not any way intended to not appreciate all that hard work. Yeah,
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 Certainly.
yeah, absolutely, overall, I think it looks really
it's a
good.
milestone for the
Yeah.
community.
And we do appreciate Foster Lawn.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Comment from
I
public.
want to build on what June pointed out about, what was going on in that picture. Photo credits are actually kind of nice, especially when they identify exactly where something is. Most of these are or all of them are in Washington County, except for maybe the Olympia one. But a photo credit of what it is and where it is. It lets people relate to that a little more, or they think, hey, that's a really cool picture, I wanna go see that place in Whatcom County, so. You have an opportunity to advertise a little bit more around for our community.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, photo credit.
It looks good.
Yeah, looking at the cover though, actually, just, shouldn't it be like. Walker Public Utility District and then strategic plan, I mean, the way it reads is like. District strategic plan, like, just the way it's.
Let me tell you, Lisa's gonna put together something
Yeah,
that's
like-
gonna be fantastic. I have every confidence that she looked at it, she hated it, and
Yeah.
she's gonna come up with something.
Yeah.
Okay,
better.
yeah.
Yes,
We just need to give it, and by the way, is, at this point, what is the time pressure?
I'll be talking to Hillary tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the time
have
pressure
to.
is, we just need to get the contract completed, get this thing published.
And
Yeah.
as a side note, since you're asking that question, you can expect, just as a heads up, in the next commission meeting, we will have a work order change request from them due to the additional number of hours.
Yeah.
That we included in this, which I don't think is unreasonable at all,
No,
right?
no.
Can expect to see that. So I'm trying to also keep that reasonable.
Yeah, okay.
But any additional things we wanna suggest, we can still bring it to next meeting, is it?
I would say no.
Too late.
No, I would say now's your chance, so you want a new,
I'll take a look at it today.
yeah, you want a new cover,
If
maybe
you have any-
I will accomplish that.
If you have any discrete, concrete suggestions, send them to me, I'll make sure that Lisa gets
Yeah.
them. And
If there are any content issues, and I hear your feedback on the design,
Yeah,
and we'll
but-
bring something back, and if we bring it back and you really still don't like it, then obviously we can talk about that. But, I would be more concerned at this point about specific feedback on content,
Right,
if there's any concerns about what's in there. And I will take your feedback on the design and we'll get that corrected.
Great,
okay,
thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah, and even in the next couple of days, I'll be talking with her tomorrow, but we could maybe have any changes to her, like Wednesday, Thursday. So if you get them to me in the next 4 hours, then I can get them to. that reasonable?
Yep.
That's it for old business.
Okay, let's move on to new business. And we have one item under new business, and that's Annette.
That
The
is
draft
Annette.
budget presentation.
And she should be here, and there she goes.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
It is that time of year where you get to have lots of boring conversations about numbers. We've been meeting for several months, staff and I, about getting this budget put together. And so we're ready to share it, and kind of show you where we're at and what we're looking at for this next year's budget. Just to start off pretty easy with a picture instead of lots of numbers. This is work we're currently doing on replacing poles. And yeah, I just thought it was a very pretty picture.
So just, let me make a comment on this. Those things are called H structures.
Mhm.
You can see why. They're wooden and they last 25 to 40 years, depending on local conditions and all that. We're replacing them with steel structures that should be good for 80 to 100 years.
All
So
of them,
over time, yeah. Yeah.
the ones in my back 40.
Yeah, I mean, over time, we plan on doing that so that, you know, it's just in the long run, they're more expensive up front, but the O&M costs and the life cycle costs are much lower.
Mhm.
So just, you'll see us modernizing our system like that. This is this is Kurt and Garrett have been driving this, and I think it's really a very, very good thing, and Brian before that.
Yeah.
All right, so just outline, this is typical what we have every year. We are going to talk a little bit about Grandview a little further on. So that's a little change from normal. And then the big thing on this is you can access our draft budget currently on our website. If you go to our website under the commission tab or commission section, there's financial documents, and down at the bottom, there'll be a 2026 draft budget. That will be replaced with the final budget when we get to that point. All right, now into the numbers. So this is a high level. I mean, this whole presentation will be high level. So the actual budget will go into more detail about different things. And in most of these slides, you'll see sections referenced on here. So on this one, there's a section 2 to 5 down that lower left hand, and that refers to the sections in the budgets where you can see more detail. This is laid out like it has been in the past. So we have the different utilities, and it comes up to a total for 2026. And then we compare it to what we're projecting 2025 to come in and showing any variances there. There's the one difference we have, you'll notice from last year, is last year we had added a telecom column because we thought telecom broadband was going to be a active utility within the PUD. That is kind of shifted. We're now more of a pass-through for grants instead of actually getting operating revenue from them. And so that's been removed. And so it's back down to our original 3 there. The orange highlighted slide or lines are topics where we're going to go into more detail in further slides. So I'm not really going to address that now. And then the biggest one, which typically always is the election costs, which hit us every 2 years. And those costs now are a little over our last one was a little over 300,000. So elections are not cheap, and it does create a bit of a swing. Any questions on that?
Who do we talk to about the election costs? And it's just ridiculous that we carry the largest burden for elections and we have a commission of 3.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Unfortunately, it's spelled out by RCW.
Yeah, this is, and I think we verified it through CSD years ago and relatively recently, that there's some discretion at the county level and they are exercising maximum discretion.
So our county is at
That is
max, so
correct.
they choose, even though it's in the RCW, they still choose.
Yeah, there is some discretion. Nuances are coming to mind, but the cost shift to the county.
And they're never gonna allow that. Yeah, okay. Can we dim the lights a little so I can see this better on the screen?
Sure.
Thank you.
Does not. How's that?
I mean, it's better for me. I
That's
don't,
fine with me.
yeah.
Better for you guys?
All right, so getting into a little bit more of the detail here. Up in the upper left, we'll start with the admin expenses. Office expense is going to jump a little bit, and that's due to some building maintenance we have budgeted. If you look around, you'll see, especially on this half of the building, a lot of panes the seals have broken, and so they're getting cloudy. We have a number of those that we're going to have to replace, and we're going to work on this year. And so that's causing that jump there. And now with the addition of Lisa, she is doing her job very well. And one of the big, and with our strategic plan, community outreach is becoming more of a focus. So I pulled that out, and that's going to be more of a identified line item. So for 2026, we're going to have $7,500 budgeted there. And that's going to cover things like the parade, open houses, things that are more community oriented. Over on the top, the business projects, these are the projects that I don't want to bury in our general ledger. I want to pull out so we can watch them. They're a lot of times they're unique. They're not necessarily straight O&M type projects. So of course, adjudication continues to be our winner in that section. Now the cost has gone down. Last year we had budgeted 500,000, and right now it looks like we're projecting to come in a little over 4. So 270 is a drop in what we've seen in the past. Down at the bottom of the business services, the Point Roberts is the one I wanted to talk about there. As we all know, Andrew has done an amazing job keeping up with all the changes and just the whole environmental change in all the different grants and the government and how we're going to do this. So we do still have some grants in line. Right now, moving forward, the feeling is we're going to be more of a pass-through, more a participant as opposed to owning the assets. So I've moved that down into the business services for these coming years. And then the outside services, a lot of times there's a big swing in that in engineering or something. But this year we don't really have any big changes. Any questions on that slide?
Yeah, the Cherry Point feasibility study, what are we studying?
So that was put into my request, in case somebody comes in and says they would like a high voltage connection for whatever the project is, we gotta have some money available to do that. The other thing is that we may be asked at some point to participate in your typical land planning study. And the port keeps threatening to do that, and we haven't seen it yet, but I wanted us to be prepared financially in case that came next year.
Would it be a problem from your perspective to expand that, or generalize the term Cherry Point feasibility study to just, potential feasibility studies, because there might be something, you know, for other locations too, Grandview or whatever.
Yeah, the thing you're absolutely right. The reason I was picking on Cherry Point was the feedback that you and I both received from Puget Sound Energy. I wanted to make sure that they
Okay.
understood it wasn't that. You know, the municipalization issue.
Oh, right, no, yeah, for sure, I was referring to other.
No, I get it. That's why I picked that title, was to avoid that particular issue, but I'm not wed to that at all. And it's literally there just in case, not.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm fine as long as we all understand that. And then I noticed, you put in yellow, Annette, office expenses, is there something to point out there?
That's
Yeah,
the window.
The window replacements I had spoken about at the beginning. So
Okay.
under office expense, that also includes building maintenance, our office buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, parts of this building are reaching end of life. We replaced the roof either late last year or early this year. And it's time. And we've had the window seals begin to fail. And so that's impacting the O&M costs here, and we're worried about water intrusion and all that stuff. So it's just, there's some building maintenance expense that we gotta do every year.
Great.
All right, so the next one's personnel. So as you know, we just hired a new electrician who has been a great addition to our team. And then right now for the budget, we have 3 more ads. Now these are all in yellow and that is my code for these are all replacements. So contract manager, that has been on there for a couple years. We're not exactly sure on the timing of that, but we also want to have in there a water operator and an IT tech. So what those number of months next to it is like the overlap months that we'll have between the existing staff and the new staff. Now, keep in mind when you're looking at these, that these include all our benefits. So this year, in a previous commission meeting, we had agreed with the health plan that had an increase of a little over 16%. So all of that's going to be rolled in here under our costs. So that's part of that. Any questions on that slide?
Why is the commissioner salary going down? There's a minus 4.8% decrease.
Part of that is we take our best guess at how many per diems you guys are going to collect
Gotcha.
or charge. And so if those swing much, that is going to cause that.
Yeah, and that one was our 2024 actuals compared to what we had estimated. So we overestimated the premiums a little bit.
I gotta start using those per diems.
No, please don't.
Just kidding.
All right, now a break in our numbers. This was a picture taken just not too long ago when they were digging out the basins here at Plant 2 one morning early.
Dinosaurs in the Mist.
It's a good title. All right, now we're going to hit the big numbers. So this is a summary of our capital budget. We're looking forward towards the next 5 years. And of course, RW38 is our big one. So that's their Plant 1 rebuild, and the numbers are large. We're working off of 60% now that we just received. We're probably scheduled to get a 90% plans sometime in March, and so these numbers again will adjust. But this is,
I
yes,
don't wanna interrupt you, but we can't see anything on this slide, and I've got my glasses on. Is there a
Okay.
way we can make this bigger?
You do have down at the bottom, it has the section that it's in, you can open the book up.
But our friends don't have it.
Well, that's
right. So that's section 8 and 9. And so I will make a note. I do not know how to make
Oh,
your,
that's bigger. No, that's great.
Uh,
That's good.
commissioners, what we can do is after Annette gives her presentation, I will ensure that this slideshow is attached to our final agenda. And if anybody wants to review this presentation, they will be able to do so when that agenda is posted to our website.
Okay, great, but we
This is
just
good.
got it bigger, so it looks fantastic.
You just
Thank
have to
you.
scroll now, that's
Yeah.
all.
thank you. So Plant 1 rebuilds, the first highlighted, and then down towards the bottom, the second one I have highlighted again is broadband. And so I previously had told you we're going into, it looks like we're going to be more of a pass-through for the grants. I'm talking to Andrew, there is a possibility that things will work out and we would spend $1 million before the end of this year. And he is working on agreements as to whose asset that's going to be. So for now, I just left it here in our capital budget, not knowing if it's going to be our asset or not. So, but it is possible we could be moving forward before the end of the year.
Well, hold on. The issue is not whose asset it's gonna be. It's gonna end up being, Whitby-Tel's asset.
Right.
The issue is who administers it, and we're not sure whether us or the port are gonna administer it long-term. Our recommendation is the port do it, and they just roll in the administration with all the other projects they already have in flight. If they really don't wanna do that, we have the ability, the amount of administration going forward on this grant is gonna be pretty small. It's gonna be on the order of, half a dozen hours a year. So it's you know, we may end up with administration, we will not end up with the assets.
Okay. All right, and so going on to a couple more items that we talk about, the extraordinary maintenance budget. This is typical projects that you see every year, but we do have a new one this year. And that's, we're going to be reviewing and testing some transmission line flow in our big water lines the next couple years. And so we have money in there now for that. And then debt. The topic I do not like, but we have to address. So earlier this year, you'll remember we issued a little over $60 million in debt and bonds to pay for this first part of this water treatment rebuild. Right now, with the numbers and the timing that we have, I'm looking at end of 27, beginning to 28, another 48 million being issued. And then you can see the orange, the kind of brown orange towards the bottom. You might not be able to see the number, but it's 461 million. So we are well within our non-voted debt capacity that's set by the RCW. So legally, we have no trouble issuing this debt. It's whether we can pay the debt and manage this debt is what is our kind of our limiting factor here.
And out of curiosity, how did you come up with the 48 million by 2028?
Just cash flows. So we have, you know, big rate models, and I put in all this, the capital spending that we're expecting right now and the schedules, you know, and you combine it all with the revenue you're expecting to come in. And that's the plug we need to get over that and not to be able to pay our bills and to pay for this project.
Sure. Thank you.
So what is the, just an update on what is the capital expenditure on plant one looking like? It's going to be total?
So I'd have to refer to Kurt and Garrett, but it was somewhere between 140 and 160 million.
Right, and so then I was just looking at the
The
comparative,
difference there is what we end up paying for out of cash flow
okay,
over the 6, 7, 8 years of the project.
which is, will be about 40 million. 30, 40, yeah.
It's hard, and it depends on what we set rates at, and I mean, there's a lot of, when you look at the out years especially, there's a lot of bagash and bagali, but that's a technical accounting term, by the way.
Yeah,
And dang, but that's what Annette does, is she looks at the cash flow.
that's an interesting point. So your bondish in projects like this that are multi-year projects, it's fair to say that the amount you borrow through the capital markets is going to be less than the total project cost, because you use, that's why you do the rate study in advance.
Yeah.
You raise the rates in advance so that you're so you're actually generating some of the revenue you
Right.
need to pay for the capital.
And that, what you characterize is common, but not universal. So, you know, most times the answer is yes, you end up cash financing some of the project and you borrow less than the bottom line for the project. I've seen projects go the other way, where you get into construction and they blow up and you've got to do additional debt, and I don't anticipate that here.
Yeah.
But it could happen.
So for utility, I mean, like, good execution is, of course, good planning up front, like, and then secondly, the rate study up front rather than afterwards.
Right.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that.
All right, now we can title this the Robin slide, but we're going to talk about reserves. When we when I started, the attitude was keep reserves as low as possible. And to be honest, back then, the market, our customers were pretty secure. They were pretty steady, pretty not a lot of changes, not a lot of surprises. It's changed. You know, our customers are a little bit more variable, and costs of things are a little bit more variable. And so we are recognizing that we do need to increase reserves, but we have to balance that with our rates are pretty high right now. So we need to balance increasing those reserves we're holding without totally crippling our customers. So this is kind of a look of what we're doing. our financial policy automatically increases our operating reserves and our capital reserves based on our operating expenses and based on our capital assets that we hold. What we have and when we come to you every year is asking where we want to set the emergency or general reserve at. And so right now, what this is this is increasing it $5,000, both of those, and for into next year, and then setting aside that $5,000 into the reserves. Any questions on that?
Well, the only question is that, why that, I mean, it's about a 1% rate, right? Or less than yeah, it's about a 1% rate.
1.5.
Yeah, it depends on the emergency or the general rate, but, so is that an appropriate, are we keeping up with, obviously, inflation and things like that, and should we be a little bit more aggressive than 1%?
Well, remember, what Annette's getting at is that if you want more in the reserves, you have to raise more through your rates. And right now, we're already looking at large rate increases, and she's gonna go through that. So our dilemma is, in this case, you see our reserves are actually going up almost $1 million, but a lot of that is because our capital structure changes as we start building on plant one and everything else. So our requirements are there. The discretionary part is the $10,000 you see hanging out on the side. And yes, we could drive that up, but you know, when you start looking at our proposed rate increases, it would make them even larger to build those reserves. So that's the dilemma. You know, how do you do this gradually so you don't hurt customers, but how do you do it fast enough so that if something happens, you've got sufficient reserves to deal with it? I'm not sure there's a scientific answer for that.
Another great picture in it.
Thank you.
That's the river blown out, right?
Yeah,
Couple years.
that's our flood.
You chose the flood to coincide with the reserves?
Yes, there was some strategy there. Yes. How about this one? So this is my Grandview slide, and I'm going to pass this off to Chris, but I just wanted to explain what's going on in this kind of messy slide. So when we're talking about Grandview, the big thing to keep in mind is they're really small. So 2025, their budgeted revenue was just over $300,000. And so one of the big projects that we had to accomplish back in 2019 was to get that Vista line extension, and that connected our industrial water with our Grandview. And what that did is that provided a secure and reliable source for non-potable water, and that feeds into the Grandview non-potable and their fire system. But in order to do that, that project costs about $2.5 million. We got an EDI loan, we got an EDI grant, and so there was a lot of figuring and calculating and trying to figure out how to fund this. So with that, I'll pass this off to Chris.
Yeah, so Kurt and Garrett and the operators have been looking at the conditions in Grandview. And I gotta tell you, we probably should have had the entire thing replaced before we bought it in the 1990s. And so what you're seeing in our proposal here is the limp along business as usual solution, not the fix the problem solution. And the fix the problem solution would be a much larger discussion that we would have to have, I think, outside of the budget. And we've got to bring a proposal to you. The problem is going to be how to pay for it. And that's a real problem. So I don't have an answer for you yet, but just know that our recommended budget here, the draft, is literally to limp along. And the capital spending that we're doing there to repair problems, probably greater on a typical year than the revenue we get from the system. It literally is not sustainable. So the only good news in all of this is that the Grandview system is very, very small compared to our industrial system, so it doesn't cripple the overall organization. If that was our only utility, we would probably hand this over to the county to operate. It's not viable today, the way it's configured. And so, I mean, what needs to be done is all the piping and meters need to be replaced. We probably need to replace the well with a potable plant that generates off of our water. you're looking at something that's between $4 and $7.5 million. You could never recover it from revenue from Grandview.
So I know this is beating, I don't wanna say beating a dead horse.
Because of your line of
Yeah,
work.
so this is in the Ferndale's urban growth area, is that correct?
And they have no interest, and they have stated they have no interest in ever taking over the water system here.
Even though their comprehensive plan is
They're-
growing,
If you read their comprehensive plan, when it comes to the potable water system, Grandview is carved out. They wanna do sewer there, but not water,
but not water,
not water.
even though it makes sense.
They know about this system,
Uh-huh,
and
They don't want the system.
They don't want the
obligation.
system.
They don't want the liability.
they'll take the system if we bring it up to speed. Otherwise, they don't want it. And,
do we, I just feel like in this meeting, we've been called Trekkies. We've been treated like, you know, we gotta take the brunt of the cost for elections, we gotta take the brunt of Ferndale's Grandview problem. At some point, like, do I have to light myself on fire and go screaming through other people's council meetings?
I don't think you're gonna change Ferndale's view on this ever.
Yeah.
They're, unless the system is fully brought up to top standard.
modern standards.
So I've been exposed to this Grandview issue since the beginning, for me, which was 2019, beginning of 2019. I remember it came up right away. And so what's evolved for me is a recognition that we need to come up with a economic development strategy for that area that exploits the fact that it is a desirable area for growth. And part of that has to do with evolution of ownership. Which is all I will say outside of executive session.
Yeah,
I really think that this is beyond a budget discussion.
yeah, it is.
And we need to have a Grandview discussion at some point. We're
Yeah.
not ready to do that yet.
Yeah,
I would suggest in the first quarter next year, we dedicate half of one of our commission meetings
and
or do a
let's bring,
separate study session.
if we can get him to make the time, let's bring Tyler to that conversation.
We can certainly invite him.
Or incorporate his input, yeah.
Well,
because it's covered in the buildable lands study, which I reviewed. And, you know, one of the things that's attractive is that, you know, one of the challenges is that there's all kinds of business that is interested in the geographic location of Whatcom County. And, one of the challenges there's even physical land. But when you look at the overlay of land and water supply, there's not a lot of developable land.
Yeah.
So Grandview could fall into that sweet spot, you know, as the water supply. If there's an economic development plan, the customers that are gonna buy enough water, heck, we can make it happen.
Well,
So,
I agree, we have that, it's a much bigger discussion.
Yeah.
You gotta,
and I just wanna say something, Jamie, to your point. What you're feeling, it's what I'm feeling, it's what Steve felt.
it's
Bronson.
disrespect.
Well, it is, and we're dealing with a series of decisions that were made, long before any of us even probably knew this organization existed. And
yeah, right
at the
on.
time, they were apparently good decisions because they made them, and they made them in good faith and all that. And then you march 30 years into the future and you go, oh
Things
my
change.
God, this was awful.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. So we're working on a plan to try and fix this. The problem is always gonna be, how do you pay for it?
Mhm.
Because once it's fixed, if it's paid for, then we can rationalize everything and move on, and it won't be an issue, but today it's an issue.
All right, let's get back to the budget.
All right, now the ugly slide. So right now with everything as it is, we're looking at industrial rate increase of just under 20%, Grandview at 8, and electric right about 5. These are pretty much in line with what we had projected last year in the budget. Grandview's a little bit lower than what we projected. And a lot of this is driven by our capital budget, and then also kind of referring back to our debt discussion, one of the things that came up when we had our rating presentation for our bonds earlier this year is we had targeted a 1.5 debt service coverage. what a debt service coverage is you take your revenue, you take out your expenses, and what's left, how many times can you cover your debt service? So that's a big metric that all the rating agencies want to look at. And so we've always targeted right about a 1.5. They recommended us moving that up to a 2. And that would increase and help our ratings with the bonds. So we're slowly going to be doing that, but that again is going to put some pressure on our rates. So, you know, some of these might be able to be adjusted down a little bit just on a cash flow perspective, but on a debt service coverage perspective, we can't really bring these down anymore. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
All right. And so for the last slide, this is what our budget is looking like going forward. So on Tuesday, we're going to have a Zoom meeting with our 2 different sets of customers. And then on November 12th, this is important, I'm hoping to get that be the deadline for any kind of input or any kind of tweaks, comments from you and also our customers. And so I can incorporate that in the next presentation. And then on the 25th, we'll have the public hearing in the second presentation. And then on December 9th will be all the resolutions to pass the budget and the rates.
I gotta observe that, Annette, we'll be probably taking comments from the commission on November 10th. Because that'll be when we
That's our
have the
meeting.
next commission meeting.
Yeah,
Do we anticipate any negative feedback from customers on this? Those rate increases?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you know, if they had a choice, but I try and present it so they understand why.
Yeah.
And if they were paying attention last year, they know that this was kind of projected and why
Yeah.
it's projected. So a lot of times recently, we don't get a lot of comments in the customer meetings. We might get emails afterwards, but usually during the customer meetings, they're pretty quiet.
I mean, I feel like every utility has had significant increases in the last year, you know. PSC has had significant increases, and Blaine, we've had significant increases. I think it's just. Yeah.
fashion.
Annette,
Thank you.
who's, how many RSVPs do you have for the customer calls? Do you know yet?
We have sorry, getting my roster. So for the industrial, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people covering 3 companies. And then for Grandview, I only have 2 RSVPs right now.
We had 2 last year from Grandview, and I think it's probably the same ones.
Mm.
But the invitation went out to every customer, and we've done a bit of outreach. And this is typical with Grandview. They typically 1 or 2 people show up.
Okay,
Thank you for this presentation, Annette. You always make it so easy to follow along.
Thank you.
go ahead, Eddie.
No, so, well, thank you, Annette, and for having the draft here in the binders helpful. I noticed that, so the sections 10, 11, 12, service rates, forecasts, mine's blank.
Yeah, that's
Um,
always the second presentation. So the first part, the first draft, we kind of focus on getting all the building blocks and all what's going to drive all that remainder. And so once we get those more solidified, then I get the cash flows and the forecasts and all of that.
Okay, so after you have those, the meetings with customers and all that'll be the next
So
step.
we're getting this binder today and on next Monday, I mean, a regular, well, but it is a special meeting, isn't it? Because we changed the schedule. To replace our regular meeting.
Yeah, on the 10th.
Just FYI, the binders were available on Friday. I don't know if you guys remember, but we asked that they be provided to us ahead of time. You just need to swing by the office and pick them up.
Okay.
So that's
Which
really
isn't practical
helpful.
for me.
Oh, no, it's really, I mean, maybe I can help get you your binder as I work next to you, but it's really helpful to have it ahead of time. It's a lot of information. to look over.
Yeah, I know, the
Yeah.
main input for this
Yeah.
budget will be, meeting will be that Monday meeting, right?
Yes,
Although
you
you-
can always email Chris or I, any kind of input you might have.
Well, yeah, I'll have some time in the next couple of weeks to more. Yeah, we'll fully review and prepare.
And the missing tabs, or the empty tabs right now, we'll get that information on the 10th probably? Or will it be after that?
No, that'll be at the next presentation of the budget. So you'll get a whole new packet. So it'll replace the beginning part and have those additional. That'll be on November 25th.
Okay,
So please take these home and study them.
yeah,
Yeah. And then same thing though, the new stuff will be available the Friday before in hard copy if we need it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So it's a lot of information to go over the day of.
okay. Great, thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
Thanks for the hard work. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. We just completed new business. Let's go on to commissioner reports.
Oh, I'm gonna make this simple and easy. Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. So, our last meeting was a long meeting,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a lot of time to talk about telecom. So, I attended the telecom workshop, and I'll just I think what I'll do is I'll summarize this in an email, because now a lot of this stuff is no longer fresh in my mind. So I need to spend a little bit of time digesting it. So
What
But the main
telecom
thing-
workshop?
there was a telecom workshop, for PUD.
Oh, what put in meeting?
No, almost a month ago. The main thing is that we are still waiting to get our official notifications. There is going to be a time for us as an organization and certainly for PUD to think about what's next. It's still a little bit premature to think about that. But one of those topics is digital equity, and so a lot of that activity may be outside of PUDs, but it's certainly something that I think that needs to be addressed. And because we can expect that the amount of new funding for capital will be decreasing dramatically, one of the opportunities is to regardless of whether it's specifically PUDs or communities as a whole, address is adoption. Because a lot of hardware is being installed, infrastructure is being installed, and it needs to be used. So I'm looking forward to talking more about what we can do to increase adoption, with what is getting built in Whatcom County. So it's in all our interest to get what's built be installed. Because we applied for money, we got money, stuff is getting built. And if that stuff doesn't get used, the question is, what the heck will we do? So,
So for those of us who are not telecommunications people, what do you mean by adoption?
it means that you've got these wires running all over the county, fiber and towers.
If I may just.
And how many people subscribe? Yeah, go ahead.
So in Yakima, for instance, they had a big fiber project a few years back. And what they ended up doing was wiring a whole bunch of neighborhoods. And then it turned out the adoption rate was zero. Because non-English speaking, they didn't know how to run PCs, they didn't know how to even contact their internet service provider to get the house connection, all that kind of stuff. And so the community actually stood up a small group of people that literally went door to door and, and they, I forget where they had the grant from, but they bought PCs and they went into the community and gave people PCs and then educated them on how to get them connected, how to use them. And then they came back and they had additional training and got the acceptance and adoption rate very, very high. So there are parts of Whatcom County where I would expect that same kind of outcome. And I think throughout the state, there's a lot more areas where that's the likely outcome. And, so, you know, that's really when you talk about digital equity adoption, that's what you're focused on, is the folks that don't even know what the internet is and have no clue on how to get connected.
And for sure, that's not an exclusive PUD responsibility, but like with adjudication, we're the ones that are spent the most energy our team has, on the subject, so at least we can, create the case for, multi-jurisdictional engagement on the subject.
Where do we think that adoption would be an issue in Whatcom County?
Oh, we already know, like, the East County, projects are having low adoption.
Like Mount
Yeah,
Baker?
exact, yeah.
Yeah, if you were in the Nooksack tribal area, the adoption rates there are very, very low. Some of the areas, the adoption rate, even if you, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but the reason that they live out in the woods is they don't want this kind of thing. So, you know, there's gonna be some areas where the adoption rate's gonna be kind of naturally intrinsically lower. And then up in Nooksack, the adoption rate would be very, very high in those snow lines, snow belts, snowflake, those 5 condo developments up there.
Yeah.
I think that's actually, they are snow line, snowflake and snow
water.
Snow water. Yeah,
Close, it's very similar, for a physicist, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. So, there you go. That's what the adoption issue is all about. In the past, it's been a general government function, not a PUD function, and grants have been administered through Commerce and others. And I think, you know, the issue is, you know, how much do we want to have in terms of guidance and say and all that, and I don't know, that's beyond my ken.
Yeah. Sounds like a community effort to bring people online. I like the idea of it.
Just don't go in the uniform. Some of the communities
Yeah.
Oh, a uniform?
don't go.
Oh, need a uniform. I don't even have one.
Okay, well, that's my main comment, I won't be attending PPC, Chris is going, looking forward to report, on that, because there's no online option for that. And so I think that, and of course I will be attending with Buddha, but that'll be after our next commission meeting, so. That's my report,
The next commission meeting, which is on Monday,
yeah,
which is different for us, and I'm giving up my one day out of the year to sleep in. To come here,
We appreciate it.
yeah.
yeah. Well,
I
we
just
can
want
move
a little
them,
pat on the back.
Yes.
Yes, that's right, Lisa.
you can move the time if you want, you can make it 9.
I don't, I mean,
No, really, if you wanna-
I wouldn't mind having a 9 o'clock meeting, so.
Who has a problem with 9 o'clock, let's do 9 o'clock.
It's already a special meeting, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Eddie?
Did this by motion last time, so you wanna do it by motion this time.
Yeah,
Totally fine with me.
okay, let's move our Monday meeting to 9.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
November 10th meeting will start at 9.
We'll start at 9 AM instead of 8:15.
I second.
Okay,
Motion in a second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Here we go, starting at 9, not 9:15, 9.
9 AM.
9 AM.
Sure.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm happy with 45 extra minutes,
Yeah,
my one day a year. I'm down.
somebody. Okay, Eddie. Mission reports.
Well, I made the trip to Tri-Cities last week, for the Energy Northwest board meetings and, the Public Power Forum and their annual conference. And, I guess just like, you know, having top lines to report is that, the board approved or, made conditional approval for the, new nuclear small modular reactor project, which was, you know, also I think just the lead up to the conference, days before the name was publicly announced and unveiled.
Cascade.
It's Cascade Advanced Energy Facility, and I think the branding idea is to just refer to it as Cascade and lead with that rather than by the acronym. And I didn't hear anyone calling it K for CAEF, they just want to just call it Cascade, which I think, you know, in context will work. I mean, yeah, MCs will really catch on. But you know, I think yeah, overall, you know, it's turning into a real live project. So this would be starting with 4 modules at 80 megawatts each, so a 320 megawatt power plant. There's we also got you know, a little short tour of Washington State University Extension's Institute for Northwest Energy Futures has this simulator of the reactor control room where, you know, students are, you know, being trained and you know, simulating the running of the power plant. So getting a look at that and you know, control boards and all of that is pretty cool. Yeah, and a lot going on in Tri-Cities. A whole lot of you know, yeah, like just in general, I think there's a lot of potential for more growth in the energy space. And then I could run through, I mean, I don't know what else, I guess for the sake of time, what would be Chris, what do you think would be?
Probably the conditions that were approved. So for instance, the new project can't financially harm any non-participants. You know, if it's being ring fenced off. I can't remember, there were like 9 or 10 of these conditions and I was great, that's what we need. They're trying to ring fence this thing so that they don't end up repeating past mistakes. You don't want to be able to look at this 10 years from now and go, whoops. For instance.
No pun intended.
So it's all about, you know, how do we do this thing rationally, and there are going to be some utilities that don't want to participate. How are they insulated and isolated? There are utilities that want to participate. How do they benefit? And so those were kind of all the conditions that were laid out, and that was what the board was asking for approval was. Do we enter into an agreement if it satisfies all these conditions? And the answer is yes. So I think it was
Right.
It was great.
Right. Granted, you know, the wording of the conditions is pretty simple, and so, you know, as far as, you know, fulfilling and implementing them, there'll be a lot of devil in the details to look over when the final improvement comes next spring. But, you know, key point being there that you know, we should be assured that non-participating utilities, which I think would most likely include us, we're not going to be, you know, directly buying power from this power plant, that we should, yeah, as members of Energy Northwest, we should be completely insulated from any, you know, the financial risks embedded in this. And I think there's substantial risks that should, you know, to a large extent be borne by, you know, Amazon in terms of what they're agreeing to, you know, paying rates for the power and all that.
Is Amazon primarily backing this? Is that why you bring up Amazon?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, Energy Northwest is basically, it's like a middle party between Amazon and X Energy, who would build the power plant. So
Feels more like Star Wars now than Star Trek, if I'm being honest.
Evil.
well,
Can I talk about the financial thing a little bit?
sure.
So it's not clear, number one, if any utilities are gonna directly sign on for the first 320 megawatts. The target I saw in the press this week, again, it was in the Wall Street Journal. The small modular reactors are cost competitive with natural gas if they get about $6 million a megawatt for capital costs, because the O&M costs are so much lower. Capital costs for a natural gas plant are about $1 million a megawatt. So roughly 6 times that for capital. I think that the first of a kind from this is going to be much higher than that. But the idea is that by the time you get all 12 reactors in, you know, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 12th, they're going to be down close to that or even below that 6,000 a megawatt. And then, you know, at that point, utilities will want in, Bonneville will want in.
Yeah.
And so it's all about, you know, Amazon has agreed to front load this whole thing and really absorb the risk and the first of a kind costs and all that. And unless we want to step in, they get it all. But then we get the advantage of, you know, we're building out a quarter of the total power, a third of the total power plant upfront.
Mm.
And then the remaining 2/3 are gonna be at declining costs to install. So that's the overall framework of the thing. And I know, one thing that I knew, and it just never really dawned on me how important it was. These reactors are designed so that you can run 30 years without shutting them down, the way they refuel. And I had not connected with that. It is potential that in any given year, you could have 100% availability of these units.
Which is pretty cool.
That's remarkable. There's no power plant that, I mean, nuclear, the current big nukes are at the highest level, and they're between 92 and 94% available. And they're higher than coal, they're higher than natural gas, they're certainly much higher than wind or.
Yeah, but where will geothermal come out as far as that goes?
We think it's gonna come out in the low 90s, comparable to a normal nuclear plant, but it's gonna be site specific. Cause it'll depend on geochemistry that you get
Oh,
in the
yeah,
water coming
yeah,
up.
sure.
And you may have to reline your pipes periodically and, that'll, if there's a lot of sulfur that comes up in it, you get sulfuric acid. And so you have to reline pipes. So we think that's gonna be more like traditional nuclear. But these fourth generation nukes, especially the ones that are served by the little buckyballs, those things, at 100% availability potential is really remarkable. Really remarkable. The other thing is you gotta build the control room for the first 4. You don't need a new control room for the remaining 8.
Mm.
So I mean, there's a lot of fixed costs that you
Right.
solve up front,
Mhm.
and then, you don't have those as you continue on.
And just purely speaking from a style perspective, are they gonna keep that vintage look from the Columbia Generating Station?
I wouldn't say so, no.
No,
So
not knobs and.
It's the,
All the control rooms.
control room is,
Completely modern.
it's essentially just,
I'm joking because I've been to the Columbia Generating Station and seen the control room. It looks like out of Star Trek.
Yeah, well, and it was designed.
I mean, the original Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
right, yeah, from, that era. So yeah, the control room is basically just, a few, like 3 desktop computers and some TV screens on the
Yeah.
wall, and they're,
It's all done with a mouse.
yeah, and it would have, basically 3 staff at a time in the control room, at all hours, and,
Cool.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Completely islanded.
yeah, and the design of, the design of the plant and this technology, it's, there's so many fail safes in terms of, human error or failure or whatnot. There's really no potential for that to cause a meltdown or, a catastrophic event in the list of, contingencies and things that could go wrong is really not anywhere in the same level as, the 20th century nuclear power plant. So, yeah, it's really incomparable to, what we already have. Also very, very limited, minimal water use consumed by the plants, through their dry cooling systems. Limited waste produced. I think kicker, I think where some of the more, the risks might come into the picture is if you look beyond the utilities operation of the plant itself and more upstream to the field production, supply, X Energy's moving to build a field production plant in Tennessee. And, between this plant and any others that would come in, all of it's gonna be contingent on that supply chain, right, is really the key thing to keeping it, keeping the reliable baseload power there and at sustainable rates. So that's and that's where I would, say there's maybe more risk to be considered in the whole picture. But overall, yeah, I mean, it's Amazon's willing to pay big to get over the hump to try to, grow the technology to the scale to where it would be, more economical long term. And this is just, one investment they're making. I think globally they're trying to add 5 or 6 gigawatts of power.
Gosh, I saw 20.
Was it 20?
Yeah, worldwide by, I guess, 2040 or 2050 or something like that. It was a huge number, and just for them.
Right, I think 5 to 6 might have been just by 2030 or so.
Yeah, sure.
That was, yeah.
And they recognized they couldn't get there unless they can get past that first of a kind cost curve and get it to where it's production.
Right,
So they're trying to drive that through scale.
right, so. More to come on this, I guess, when we, come back for, we'll have to make a vote on final approval in the spring, and I think we will want to dedicate a special meeting to that for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, also, I mean, other things, they have a modest size, Energy Northwest has a 75 MW solar utility power project that's been kind of long been behind schedule and awaiting, interconnection approval from BPA. And now being on this, being caught between this now hard deadline to start construction by beginning of July next year in order to access the investment tax credits from the federal government that are now gonna expire. They're apparently now, they're working closer with, they're really at the table working with BPA to get that approval happen to get, so that, the investors and all that can greenlight and move that thing forward. So that was cool. They're also got some new projects in the work they're exploring. It was interesting here. They're exploring a 50 MW gravity storage project, to be located near, in the area near their plant. And they're looking for utility interest and potentially, buying into that. I don't know if that's, we wouldn't necessarily come in, but that sort of thing where, it's just like the simplest of technology where, you move stuff uphill, you let it roll back downhill.
Mhm.
Where, and where you're gonna place, like we are with lots of elevation change, at a relatively low cost, you can get that long duration storage, to fill a need that, short duration storage, battery energy systems don't necessarily. But also heard of some other kind of, innovations happening in utilities like, I think, was it Grant County or, one of the PUDs, they're adding a battery energy storage to take the strain off of their existing hydro plant. As
I
a,
can't remember if that was Grand or Chelan, but one of them, yeah.
yeah, I think it was like a couple 100 MW, or like 800 MWh of storage they'd be adding.
What they were trying to do was apparently they do cycle up and down a bit. And it's really been putting a lot of strain on the
On the
turbines.
turbines, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and so. what
soften
they're-
that.
Yeah, exactly. Just provide a load when there isn't one. You don't have to ramp the thing back. And then instead of ramping it up, you just dial back the battery and the turbine just keeps generating.
Similar reason why Douglas did the hydrogen project,
Yeah,
except, yeah, Douglas needed it, their time constant was longer.
yeah.
I think that's,
They did have a fusion presentation that I went to.
Oh, yeah.
You were tied up in the board
Yeah.
of directors meeting. It was fusion and fission, and it was largely for folks that, didn't have technical background, so it was aimed mainly at policy people. And the interesting takeaway for me was that, obviously they knew a lot about the SMR technology and timelines on that. The timelines that they were looking at on fusion were in the 5 to 10 years, actually commercially available. And when asked, and this was an Energy Northwest employee, when asked, when do you really think that's gonna come online? The answer was, we'll just have to see. Based on what all the companies are saying, here's what the timelines look like, what actually shows up will be what shows up. That's fair. We're probably on a much more certain path with the small modular reactors.
Okay. All right, nothing else on the commission comments? Let's move to our second public comment period. Was there anything else on the commission comments? You covered everything?
Besides the reserves aren't big enough?
Noted.
yeah, I guess I'm undecided on going next week next Thursday to the PPC.
Okay,
But I guess if I were to, would that be,
yeah,
you'd all be supportive of that?
yeah,
Yeah, and just remind me, you do need to RSVP for that. So if you don't have the RSVP thing, let me know and I'll forward it over to you.
Okay. But I am committed to going to Waputa the week after that either way,
Yeah.
so,
yeah. I'll be there.
but yeah, that'll be all.
Okay, public comment, Robin.
You heard it.
Not big enough.
That's all.
So I would tell Tigers to be a private citizen, appreciate the budget presentation by Annette. I found it interesting on the debt service when she had that list that, 2025 was the, when y'all went out for, the bonds. For $60+ million, and that the amount owed was the exact amount that you had gone out for, so that there's been no interest accrual or payoff on that. And so I don't know if those are roundings or not, but 1 month's interest on 60 million at 4.49 works out to be $220,000. So that looked very rounded. That's the one thing I noticed on there that jumped out. And then, I think also it would benefit the commission and the public if there was a, related to debt service, if there was a charted out payoff plan on what the plan is and how those are gonna be paid off and what that future, looks like.
We saw that when we had the presentation.
Yeah, we got all that, Todd. It was in the bond presentation. You don't typically include it in the budget. It's already part of public comment and public, but get your copy of it for sure. I mean, it was.
I think I probably have it, I don't know if you're talking about debt, how you're gonna pay that debt off seems like part of that conversation.
Yeah,
But thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Anybody online? Said no. No, okay, well, and we don't have an executive session today, Mr. Chance John.
Last week's.
And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to close.